जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। जय गोपीजन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। जय गोपीजन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। यशोदानंदन ब्रज जनरंजन। यशोदानंदन ब्रज जनरंजन। यमुना तीरावनचारी। यमुना तीरावनचारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद। श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe. Jai Panchatattva Jaya Panchatattva Jaya Panchatattva Jaya Panchatattva. Jai Prahlad Narsimha Jaya Prahlad Narsimha Jaya Prahlad Narsimha Jaya Prahlad Narsimha. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramhansa Parivrajakacharya Ashtotara Sat. His Divine Grace Abhay Charanaravind Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Madhava Ashta Sakhi Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Pancha Tattva Ki Jai. Shri Prahlad Shri Narsingha Dev Ki Jai. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Avirbhav Divas Mahotsava Ki Jai. God Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories, all glories, all glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Nashta Prayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavat Yuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, I beg your pardon, from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela, chapter 9, titled The Desire Tree of Devotional Service, text 42. Etavat Janma Safalyam Dehinam Iha Dehishu Pranaihi Arthaihi Diya Vacha Shreyaha Acharanam Sada Etavajjanma Sapalyam Dehinam iha dehishu Pranirartherdhiya vacha Shreya acharanam sada Etavajjanma saphalyam Dehinam iha dehishu Pranirartherdhiya vacha Shreya acharanam sada Etavajjanma saphalyam Iha dehishu Pranirartherdhiya vacha sada Etavajjanma saphalyam Iha dehishu Artherdhiya vacha Mataji's, please. Inam iha dehishu Pranirartherdhiya vacha Shreya acharanam sada Inam iha dehishu Etavat, up to this, Janma, of birth, Saphalyam, perfection, Dehinam, of every living being, Iha, in this world, Dehishu, toward those who are embodied, Pranaihi, by life, Arthaihi, by wealth, Dhiya, by intelligence, Vacha, by words, Shreyaha, eternal good fortune, Acharanam, acting practically, Sada, always. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. It is the duty of every living being to perform welfare activities for the benefit of others with his life, wealth, intelligence, and words. I will read only the first half of the purport, if I may be excused to doing that, because of paucity of time. Purport. There are two kinds of general activities: Shreyas, or activities which are ultimately beneficial and auspicious, and Preyas, or those which are immediately beneficial and auspicious. For example, children are fond of playing. They do not want to go to school to receive an education, and they think that to play all day and night and enjoy with their friends is the aim of life. Even in the transcendental life of Lord Krishna, we find that when he was a child, he was very fond of playing with his friends of the same age, the cowherd boys. He would not even go home to take his dinner. Mother Yashoda would have to come out to induce him to come home. Thus, it is a child's nature to engage all day and night in playing, not caring even for his health and other important concerns. This is an example of prayas, or immediately beneficial activities. But there are also shreyas, or activities which are ultimately auspicious. According to Vedic civilization, a human being must be God conscious. He should understand what God is, what this material world is, who he is, and what their interrelationships are. This is called shreyas, or ultimately auspicious activity. In this verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said that one should be interested in shreyas. To achieve the ultimate goal of shreyas, or good fortune, one should engage everything, including his life, wealth, and words, not only for himself, but for others also. However, unless one is interested in shreyas in his own life, he cannot preach of shreyas for the benefit of others. Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Shri Mate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shri Gurun Dinatarnam Vancha Kalpatarobhyascha Kripa Sindhobhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gauratvishe Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakhyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam Aradhyo Bhagavan Vrajeshatanayas Tadhama Vrindavanam Ramya Kachidupasana Vrajavadhu Vargenaya Kalpita Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanamamalam Prema Pumartho Mahan Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhormatamidam Tatra Darahna Paraha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. I'd like to begin by offering my obeisances to all the assembled devotees and to beg for blessings so I can speak something meaningful today, especially on this very important day of the appearance anniversary of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And since the ISKCON Leadership Sangha is going on, I was asked to speak about the ideas of leadership as envisaged and taught by His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. The verse that we have up on the board was actually spoken by Krishna himself to his friends soon after the pastime of the Vastraharana Leela, when Krishna stole the clothes of the gopis. And it was summertime, and Krishna was in the forest. It was hot, and to take refuge under the scorching summer heat, the cowherd boys, along with Krishna, they went under a big tree. And at that time, Krishna began to extol the virtues of the trees and how excellent is the life of a tree. Because a tree, despite undergoing much pain and discomfort, continues to not only tolerate that discomfort, but also to work for the benefit and welfare of others in a selfless spirit. The tree gives shelter from heat, from cold, from the rain, and so on, to all those who seek shelter of it. Furthermore, the tree also offers fruits and leaves and flowers and various other things that are beneficial to people and to the animals also in general. So Krishna says that this is an example of a perfect life, and we must all try to live our life like this. Like the trees, this is a life of perfection. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu cites this verse in the passage that we have, in the verse that we have just put up on the board. This is the 9th chapter of the Adi Leela of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And the context is that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is describing the desired tree of devotional service, of which he is the very personification and embodiment. He describes all the branches and sub-branches of the tree, which are constituted by his various innumerable associates and devotees. And he says, he pleads with his associates and followers that they should help him in distributing the fruits of this desired tree, the fruits of Krishna Prema. He says, I am only one transcendental gardener, and I cannot accomplish this task by myself. So you must all help me in distributing these fruits to one and all. And then he cites this verse to explain how one must live a life of sacrifice, and in this way provide for the benefit of others. And one must be just like the trees. One must imbibe the spirit of sacrifice in one's life. Now, one might wonder, what is the context in which this is being spoken now, because it is the appearance day of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. It is interesting that the verse before this is the famous verse, Bharat bhumita hoila manushya janmajar, janma sarthaka kari kara para upakar. In which Mahaprabhu says, for all those who have taken birth in the land of Bharatvarsha or India, they have a bounden duty to first of all perfect their own lives and simultaneously to help provide ultimate benefit to everybody. So two duties are enjoined upon those who are born in India. One, to make their own life perfect, and second, to help others make their life perfect. And it is interesting that the Gaudiya Mutt, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur says, was founded for the exclusive purpose of fulfilling this instruction of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And because in fulfilling this instruction, one needs a spirit of sacrifice. The second verse, that is the verse after the Bharata Bhumite verse, is also significant. Because without incorporating the spirit of this verse that we have up on the board today, we will not be able to fulfill the instructions of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. There are actually many parallels between the Gaudiya Mutt and the way Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur envisaged and ran it, to ISKCON and the way Srila Prabhupada envisaged it and he ran it. Very, very strong parallels in many, many areas. So Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur gave a lot of emphasis to this particular principle. In the purport to the Bharata Bhumite Hoilo Janma verse, having mentioned the importance of birth in Bharat Bhumi and the glories of such a birth and the responsibility that comes upon those who have taken birth here, he concludes the purport in the last verse by clarifying that this is not only a responsibility of those born in India. Indeed, it is the responsibility of everyone all over the world. And then he mentions that we have many European and American boys and girls who are seriously cooperating with this movement. And therefore everybody, regardless of their place of birth, regardless of their background and so on, must participate very seriously in this Krishna consciousness movement in a spirit of sacrifice to achieve these two goals. Janma sarthaka kari, to make one's own life successful, and kara para upakar, to do the ultimate welfare activities for the people at large. In the purport that we just read, Srila Prabhupada clarifies two terms, prayas and shreyas. And he mentions that prayas means something that is immediately beneficial. By implication, it means it may not be beneficial in the long run. It may not be ultimately or truly beneficial, but it only appears so at this point in time. As opposed to the prayas, there is shreyas, which is our ultimate welfare. And Prabhupada mentions at the concluding part of the purport that I read, that for one who is interested in shreyas, or spreading ultimate welfare for everyone, he or she must also practice shreyas in his or her own life. In other words, this is a principle for leaders. And Srila Prabhupada has, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur has taken upon this principle and said that actually leaders must do both. He goes on to say that a consequence of this Bharata Bhumite Janma verse, of how one must perfect one's own life and help others to perfect their life, there are two words that are very important. One is achar and the other is prachar. Achar means that one has to follow these teachings in one's life, one has to practice it oneself, and prachar means to preach to one and all. And leaders must do both. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur gave many instructions to his disciples, and he focused also very much on the leaders, because they would be ultimately running the mutt, the whole mission after his departure. Many times Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur was very strong when he reprimanded his leaders. Sometimes he was very gentle, and sometimes he even ignored the transgressions of faults of his disciples. And when he reprimanded them, even if they were in strong words, the devotees would like it. And in one case, there was actually a saying amongst the disciples that Prabhupader dal and Prabhupader gal both were very sweet. In the Gaudiya Mutt, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur is addressed as Prabhupada, just as we address Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami as Prabhupada within ISKCON. So dal here refers to the Maha Prasadam of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta. So that was very sweet, they liked that. And also gal. Gal literally means abuse, but what it means here is the scolding or the reprimanding. So they relished the reprimands of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. As an ideal leader himself, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta was very expert in the art of correcting those who were in the wrong. He knew when to be strong, when not to be strong, and so on. In any case, he would very often give the proper instructions to his disciples about not just the achar, but also about the prachar. He would emphasize very greatly on how leaders must have this preaching spirit. Without the preaching spirit, leadership will become very hollow. And he had the famous saying, Pran ache jar shai hetu prachar. One who has life preaches. Also, he emphasized that one should not be deterred by various impediments that come in the way of our preaching and devotional service. When we take on the onerous task of spreading Krishna consciousness all over the world, it's very difficult because people do not want to accept it. So he encouraged his leaders who were disappointed. One time, one leader went to a program that was quite well publicized, but not a single person came to attend the program. So this leading disciple, he came back very morose, and Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Thakur, he consoled him and said, never mind, at least the 4 walls are there. We can preach to the 4 walls. And he said, Shreyamsi Bahu Vignani. When we perform activities of Shreyas, we perform activities for the welfare of others, there will be many obstacles, Vignani. And don't think, he told his leaders, that this path of devotional service, especially because we are in a sacrificing spirit trying to deliver others, that is going to be a bed of roses. Shri Bhakti Marga Iva Kantaka Koti Ruddhaha. This path of bhakti is ridden with millions of thorns. So don't think it's going to be easy. So he would caution his leaders like that. The prachar, of course, he emphasized, was the natural kirtan of those who were perfected devotees, the siddhas. At the same time, he emphasized that even for sadhakas, practicing devotees who had not attained perfection, preaching was equally essential. The other day, I met a devotee who was a little, who lost his enthusiasm in preaching because some other devotee told him that, what will you preach? What potency will your preaching have unless you become perfect? Become a pure devotee first and then you preach. So this devotee lost his enthusiasm in preaching. But this is not the Siddhanta that Srila Prabhupada gave us, and also not the Siddhanta that Srila Bhakti Siddhanta taught. Where he said that preaching and cultivating and enhancing the preaching spirit is very much an integral part of the psyche or the consciousness of a sadhaka. And we must do this. And in doing so, he expected all his leaders to be dedicated, surrendered, and detached. And he wanted to imbibe the spirit of selflessness in the devotees. And there is that famous quote in which he said that every leader must be prepared to sacrifice 200 gallons of blood to deliver the spiritual body of every single individual human in this world. So therefore, if one wants to be a leader, one wants to be a devotee even, and every devotee is actually speaking a leader, one must cultivate the spirit of selflessness. And in keeping with this theme, he often criticized the tendency that he saw sometimes amongst his leaders, wherein the weeds of personal ambition grew. Because many of the leaders were very empowered, very charismatic, and they were very scholarly as well. And naturally, when they went out, they got a lot of followers, they got a lot of praise. And therefore there was this tendency that came up to have some material ambition that crept in, especially the desire for name and fame, for prestige, for position, for honor, for popularity. And Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur would get very worried. But he would also understand that this was inevitable. And we have to take risks for the sake of fulfilling the order of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So even though he would caution and instruct his disciples to be careful, he resigned himself to the fact that the risk is always there. And one time he said, after all, we have accepted the money of so many sense gratifiers, and we are ingesting that money. So there is going to be some reaction. So one has to be very careful in all these aspects of our life, he said. Some leaders, they were motivated by desires for some special privileges within the mutt. On one occasion, a leader, a senior disciple of his, came back from a program in which he gave a very powerful lecture that was very much appreciated by the audience. And there was a lot of adulation and praise that came forth. When this devotee returned to the mutt, to the temple, he told the devotee who was overseeing the prasadam, I gave a fantastic lecture today. It was very much appreciated. Therefore today, I will take puris, not rice. Because puri is some kind of a special prasadam, it's a special meal. Rice is for the ordinary people, and puri is something special. So, of course, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta was not pleased at all to hear this. He continued to give instructions. He would hold Ishtagoshtis every single day in the afternoon, where he would take questions from the devotees, and he would give instructions. Sometimes the Ishtagoshtis were meant for giving instructions to leaders without directly personally addressing them, because he knew that they may not like it if it was told personally to them. And therefore he would speak in a general way and give the principles, and everybody concerned would get the message. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela, chapter 12, text 8, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada at length discusses the situation that happened in the Gaudiya Mutt soon after the departure of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Srila Prabhupada says that when Srila Bhakti Siddhanta was present, the disciples had disagreements, but they managed to cooperate and work together. But after the disappearance of their spiritual master, there were many serious disagreements that happened. There were two camps that were formed. One camp was those that wanted to follow the instructions of their spiritual master, and the other did not. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur left clear instructions that the Gaudiya Mutt, after his departure, would be run by the principle of collective leadership and management. And he spoke about the formation of a governing body commission. So Srila Prabhupada followed very closely in the footsteps and according to the teachings of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta and instituted the same thing within ISKCON as well. But unfortunately, Srila Prabhupada says in the purport there that there was a camp, a group of devotees who did not want to follow that instruction of collective leadership and that there would be no one single acharya for the whole mutt. But they also had the desire and the ambition to be the acharya for the mutt. And therefore, again camps formed within that camp. And there were two who became prominent contenders for the post of acharya. And these two factions deepened the schism within the Gaudiya Mutt, and there ensued many years of legal battles. Srila Prabhupada then goes on to say that he stayed out of these factions. And even though those devotees who had mattas, they were satisfied with their properties, but there was no preaching. But he said that I may not have much preaching, I did not have much facilities initially, but I focused on our spiritual master's instructions to preach and to cultivate the preaching spirit. And by his mercy, ISKCON has become successful all over the world. So therefore, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati's cautionary words about not having personal ambition and not desiring name and fame and position and power somehow were not followed by several devotees. Similarly, he also spoke about how leaders should not seek special facilities for themselves. One should not try to pull rank, as they say. Because one has a certain position, one expects that one should be given privileged treatment. In that momentous conversation in 1935 on the banks of Radha Kund, which Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur had with our Srila Prabhupada, by then he had already been initiated and was known as Abhay Charanaravinda Das. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta revealed his mind to Srila Prabhupada, our Srila Prabhupada, and he said, the matter is on fire. Now many of our leaders are quarreling over who should take which room in the mutt. It was better when we were in rented premises in Ulta Danga Junction. When we collected 200 or 300 rupees, we were able to manage everything quite nicely. But now that we have built this gorgeous palace, now my leaders are quarreling over who should have what facility and what room. Better we should sell the marble and then use the money to print books. And that was the time he emphatically once again instructed Srila Prabhupada, if you ever get money, print books. So this was definitely not something pleasing to Srila Bhakti Siddhanta. And he said at that time, Dushta Goru che shunya goyal bhalo. In Bengali this means that instead of having a troublesome cow, Dushta Guru, it's better to have an empty cowshed, Shunya Goal. In other words, better not to have such a huge temple with marble and everything than to have people who would have such personal ambitions, even sometimes of a personal nature. So he was very much, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta was very much against leaders seeking certain privileges and special facilities for themselves. Another thing that Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur had to confront, as indeed everybody will have to confront in this material world, is the issue of misunderstandings and sometimes even rivalry happening between leaders. Time and time again, he emphasized the need for leaders to cooperate with each other. Sometimes when the leaders were at loggerheads, they wouldn't see eye to eye. Sometimes leaders wouldn't talk to each other. Then he had novel techniques of rectifying this. One of these techniques was that in the Vishwa Vaishnava Raj Sabha, when there was a gathering of many, many devotees, he would call upon devotees who had some issues with each other to stand up and speak publicly the glories of the other person. Very interesting technique. And it worked. And in this way, he was very innovative even when it came to instructing his disciples, not just in matters of preaching, which he was definitely so innovative, but even in matters of instruction, he was so. Sometimes serious misunderstandings would break out amongst his leaders. It so happened that one time, two factions were formed in the community of devotees. And the two factions were formed by two leaders. There is no need to get into any names here. One faction was led by a devotee who was a very good manager and administrator. He was mostly involved in legal affairs, in financial affairs, in management and so on. He was also very well conversant with the Gaudiya Vaishnava Siddhanta. But somehow or the other, in the minds of many devotees, there was another leader who seemed to have more of that spiritual aura or that spiritual charisma. And that leader was an intellectual, he was a scholar, and he had around him leaders of similar disposition who were engaged in studying Shastra, in speaking eloquently from the Shastra, in writing books and editing, and they gave a lot of emphasis to strong devotional practices, strong bhajan and so on. The other group was involved mostly in such administrative and management matters. And a serious difference arose between the two groups. The leader of the first group was actually under the first leader, but eventually he grew in stature and became a leader in his own right. So the two groups differed in their perspective of how the mission, the Gaudiya Mutt, should be run. The first group was very much more practically oriented. The second group was more oriented towards scholastic pursuits and teaching and preaching and so on. The first group, the leader felt that the second group, they were merely theoretical people, and they didn't do much of practical value. So naturally, the rumblings of discontent on both sides, they reached the ears of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who then in Ishtagoshtis resolved the whole thing by explaining that one was Vani and the other was Vapu. Vani means instruction. The scholarly group was following instructions. They were involved in studying and speaking and writing and so on. That was very important. At the same time, the other group was Vapu. They said, one is my Vani, so the second group is fulfilling my Vani and they are pleasing me. The first group is also pleasing me because they are acting on the platform of my Vapu. Vapu means the body, which means actually the institution. And that is very necessary. So both service to the Vapu and service to the Vani are essential. At the same time, he pointed out that there is also a distinction. The distinction is that the Vapu exists for the sake of the Vani. And therefore those who are engaged in the Vani, service to the Vani, must always get the proper facility and shelter that they need. And this continued for a while. When the problems continued, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta was concerned that those leaders who were mostly engaged in service to Vapu sometimes were neglectful of service to Vani. And then he anonymously wrote an article in the Gaudiya magazine. And the article emphasized that those who simply engage in service to the Vapu and are neglectful of their sadhana, neglectful of hearing Krishna Katha, of service to the Vani, eventually will come to a point where their anarthas, their seeds of anarthas, of puja, labh, pratishtha, profit, adoration and distinction, those seeds will fructify. So therefore it is important for leaders in both groups, leaders of all kinds, to focus very essentially on the basic activities of achar and their personal sadhana and personal hearing of Krishna consciousness. The first group was rather aggrieved, and they knew that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was behind this article, but they couldn't say it to him. So they approached him and they took the name of the person, the leader who was the editor of the magazine, and said, "Why has he written like this about us?" And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he clarified. He said, anyone who cannot tolerate that article does not deserve to be in the Gaudiya Math, and was never in the Gaudiya Math. So he emphasized that all leaders must strike the proper balance between service to the Vapu and service to the Vani. And finally, one last point. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was the president Acharya and also the founder Acharya of the Gaudiya Math. And in the Gaudiya magazine it is described that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta is the instrument and the counterpart, or the Gaudiya Math rather, is the instrument and counterpart of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and that the Math lives and moves and has its very being in the founder Acharya. The institution is identical to the founder Acharya, and the associates and the devotees who are within the institution are the limbs of the founder Acharya. Very, very similar to what Srila Prabhupada said about ISKCON and himself. Srila Prabhupada said, ISKCON is my body. So the principle of collective leadership then was emphasized by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and all the leading disciples, all the leaders, they were made to clearly understand that their leadership was not independent, that their authority and leadership stemmed from the source, from the authority in the Gaudiya Math that was Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Similarly, for us as devotees in ISKCON, Srila Prabhupada is the founder Acharya. And what was said about Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and the Gaudiya Math holds for Srila Prabhupada and ISKCON. Therefore, all leaders within ISKCON, their authority and their power and everything that they have by which they can fulfill the instructions of Srila Prabhupada also stems from Srila Prabhupada. So Srila Prabhupada is the original authority for the institution, for ISKCON. Although ultimately all the previous acharyas and then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and ultimately Krishna are there. But specifically as devotees for ISKCON, our authority and our leadership stems from Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. We have 2 or 3 minutes more. If there are any comments, yes.
Thank you for the beautiful class, Maharaj. I have a question about disappointment. As we've heard, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur instructed his disciples to not be disappointed that the world appears not to be interested in Krishna consciousness. And yet we also hear that in his last days, he was becoming disappointed. Srila Prabhupada told us, my Guru Maharaj left early because he was disappointed. So, can you reconcile this? I have an idea of it. but
Please share it.
well, one is an external disappointment with the world. Don't be disappointed by the world, the reaction. But the other was internal, his own mission. His leaders were becoming mad after the bricks and the stones, he said. And yet our Prabhupada, he persevered when there were so many apparent disappointments and setbacks. Leaders were coming and going, etc. So he didn't leave early. He stayed as long as he could. So perhaps you could say something about why Saraswati Thakur, this ray of Vishnu, would leave early because he's disappointed.
Well, I guess whether he left because he was disappointed early, or whether that was a transcendental pastime, or what, I'm not in a position to say. But it is the nature of this world that, especially as he said here, that Shreyansi Bahuvignani, it's going to happen. You cannot expect not to be disappointed, because as humans, we have hopes that we will spread this mission. They are pure hopes. But those hopes cannot be perfectly fulfilled in this material world, because there will always be people who will not accept what we want to give them. And even those who are following will have their conditioned natures, and they will have defects. And they will cause some degree of disappointment. So it's unavoidable. But Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's repeated point was, never mind the disappointments, just carry on. So that's the spirit, is preaching, and that's why he made a big statement in his departure, when he preferred to depart on the battlefield, so to speak. He went to Calcutta and he departed from there because that was his preaching field. So that was a statement he was making, that he was not giving up. And just as Srila Prabhupada, till his very last breath, he was dictating his purports, not giving up till the last breath. So that is the principle of resilience and faith and perseverance, as exemplified by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and also by Srila Prabhupada. Thank you. Yes.
As you were speaking, something else I thought too. By the time he did leave, he also could see at least one person who would be capable of reviving what was going to crumble. And so he wasn't ultimately disappointed in the future, because he could see in this person,
Yes.
Abhaycharan Aravinda, that he could revive the mission.
Yes.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other comment? One other comment? Or? Yes, if it's a comment. Some of our senior devotees. Okay. A quick comment.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So in this verse, Lord Krishna says the 4 items which will be engaged for Krishna's pleasure and to make one's life perfect. So 3 items here, the prana, dhiya and vacha. They are the personal things. But the artha is, it is collective for...
It's also very personal. Artha, money, it's the most personal thing you can have. It's the hardest thing to give up. Yes?
So my question is, how we should we use that money for... Because we get money from outside,
Yes.
we are not collecting.
Yes.
So what is the Prabhupada instruction how to use?
Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, Krishnarthe akhila cheshta. All your endeavors and efforts should be only for the sake of pleasing Krishna. So even money should be only for the sake of Krishna, not for other things. That is the formula that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta gave, and which Srila Prabhupada repeated also. So, prana, our very life, artha, our wealth, dhiya, our intelligence, and vacha, our words, all 4 have to be met, have to be utilized gainfully in the service of the Krishna consciousness movement. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.